What's up? This is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Now, who's ready for some fighting words? In this video, I want to go over the Chris Eubank versus Conor Benn fight, which was a perfect fight, and it lived up to the hype. Really quick, if you like the videos, please take the time right now. Subscribe to the channel. It literally takes one click. And also, if you could, hit the thumbs up button. It shows love and it supports the channel. Jumping straight into overall thoughts. The fight lived up to everything that was said. I think the fight lived up to what their fathers had produced 30 years ago. I think it was amazing. I think both guys really were trying to take each other's heads off. I think it was more competitive because it was personal. I think it was more competitive because both guys were trying to take each other's heads off. If Chris Eubank would have fought like Chris Eubank Jr., I don't think it would have been as competitive. And I said that initially. The only thing that made me say he wasn't going to win was the fact that his father wasn't there. And when I saw Senior walk in or get up, ride up and the doors open up, I'm like, game over. Game over. Game over. And you could see it in the faces of the Benns. They probably won't admit it. But father and son both looked as if they saw a ghost. Because the whole time it had been the two of them against him. Now, mind you, Chris Eubank Jr. held it down. He ran the show. He was in the head of Eddie Hearn. He was in the head of Conor Benn, and he was in the head of Nigel Benn. He destroyed that whole team single-handedly by himself. He was a commando. But had Senior been there, a lot of things that were used as a tactic against him wouldn't have been able to be said. And he still could have manhandled them. So to see Senior show up, it was game over. And the only reason why I say that it would have been a lot easier of a fight is simply because Junior has a pretty good jab. He's very consistent with it. He's not lazy with it. However, what made this fight competitive was the ferocity of Conor Benn. I got to give him his props. Conor's very aggressive. Here's the thing about Conor. It's like I want to give him props and I want to say all these things, but there's another part of me that's like, yo, you did get popped with some stuff in your system. So it's hard for me to do it. It's hard for me to overlook that. And it's amazing how so many people got on Chris Eubank Jr. for missing by, a few ounces, his weight. And yet I didn't see the same amount of outcry when Conor Benn got popped with stuff in his system. So I do want to give him his props and say, you know what? You went up 2 weight classes and you fought your heart out. You stood your ground. You kept going forward. You did everything you said you would do. You fought like the destroyer. I can't take anything from you. But there's another part of me that says, yeah, but how much of that is really you at this point? I don't know. And that's the problem, because that was there and it's still, it's something in the back of my mind. Now, granted, there are going to be people who are going to say, well, that was 2 years ago. You're absolutely right. That was 2 years ago. It doesn't mean that he quit. And it just means that they didn't find anything in the system this time. Or I don't know if there's long-lasting effects or anything like that. I've never taken any of that stuff. I have been around bodybuilders, but I've never been around that stuff. I've never indulged in that stuff. So it's just like I want to give him his props. And I have to give him his props that he stood his ground. He has heart for days. And I think at 147, he is going to be a force. I think he does need to go back down in weight. 160 is not it for him. I mean, the fact that he shows up at 156 is a clear sign that 160 is not it for him. Can we make this right? Well, it's already going to be made right. There's going to be a rematch. So, yeah, it's going to be in September. Turki Al-Sheikh has already said it. Done. Before they had walked out the building, Turki Al-Sheikh is like, no, we're doing this again. We're doing this again. And Lord willing, if Senior is involved, this is going to be twice the size of this. But we're doing this again. And that means that Conor Benn has another shot to make it right and to put the Benn name on the scoreboard. Because right now, the Eubank name is just going to be walking around like this after all those buckets. So they get another opportunity. But here's a light in the darkness for Conor Benn. He has another opportunity with Harlem Eubank. He's smaller. He's 147-pound fighter. And so I don't see Conor beating Chris Jr. I don't. I didn't think he was going to beat him this time. And I definitely don't think he's going to beat him now that Chris knows him. And I think, and Chris even admitted it, he was like, you know what? I didn't train for a blood and guts fight. I didn't train for that type of fight. I trained for somebody who was going to be aggressive. I was just going to manhandle him and, keep him at distance, keep him at bay. But he forced his way in and he fought his way in and he stood his ground. He was also expecting Conor at some point to back down. And he was looking at this at maybe the 5 or 6 round time frame where he would have to succumb to the size of Chris Eubank Jr. in the onslaught. Now, mind you, Chris Eubank Jr. outpunched Conor like 300 punches. So there you have it right there. And I said that. I said Chris Eubank Jr. is a combination puncher. He's got energy for days. I think he has a better engine than Conor Benn. But I also think Conor Benn jumping up 2 weight classes, yeah, I get it. What he did in sparring, sure, so what? Sparring is sparring. There's headgear. Sparring is sparring. It doesn't, they're bigger gloves. You're fighting 8-ounce gloves, and these gloves are probably, 14s. So it doesn't really mean anything. It means something, but it doesn't mean as much as Nigel Benn put it out. Like, oh, he beat up William Skull. First of all, who was William Skull? Skull or Skull, whatever his name is. Granted, he's the next opponent for Canelo Alvarez, but we don't know who this man is, and he should not be fighting Canelo Alvarez. So that's nothing to brag about. And Chris Eubank Jr. flat out said that. It was like, yeah, no, it's a fun story. Keep telling your story because it doesn't mean anything. And again, the size, it played a difference. I was looking at the comments of, certain fighters. Clarissa Shields said something that was really interesting. She was like, it wasn't that Chris beat him up. It's just that Chris was bullying him. And that's the truth. I felt like Chris didn't have to fight so aggressive. If Chris would have simply circled the ring and just used his jab, he could have knocked Conor's head off. He probably could have knocked Conor out. Just simply doing that. Because it's clear that he threw a whole lot more punches. So all you had to do was that and circle. Literally, that's all you had to do. You chose to make it rough. You chose to make it tough. And you're the taller guy. You have the longer arms. You chose to make a lot of things. Maybe it's for the, entertainment of the crowd. In which case, on behalf of the crowd, I appreciate you. But you didn't have to make it as tough as it was. Granted, Conor's going to be Conor, and I think psychology-wise, I think if you back up with someone like a Conor Benn, he's going to look at it as you're being fearful. He's going to look at it as, I think I'm hurting him. So he's only going to go full throttle. So there are spots where you have to let him know, hey, I'm bigger than you. I hit just as hard or harder than you, and you're not moving me, and you're not dropping me. So you're going to have to put stand your ground in certain spots. But I didn't feel like it had to be a 12-round slugfest. Like I said, I appreciate it. I think it lived up to the hype, but it didn't have to be that. Moving forward for the rematch, what do I think would happen? the same thing. The same thing. Granted, Conor's been gone for a while. Yeah, you can make that argument. Yeah, sure, Conor's been gone for a while. But it still doesn't excuse the fact that he showed up, he weighed in at 156 for 160. So you being gone for a while is not going to just throw some weight on you. Now, granted, you'll be more conditioned. You'll probably be a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier or something like that. You might even, you might even hit 158, 159, but you're not a true 160 pounder. And, Chris Eubank Jr., I got to give him his props because he's played the game fairly. The first time around, Conor gets popped for steroids. The second time around, it's this ridiculous thing with a few ounces and they charge him. I think if they fight again, it needs to be at maybe 162 or something like that. Don't kill Junior, because the reality is if Junior was fully hydrated, it wouldn't have gone 12. It just wouldn't have. You're talking about a guy who hadn't eaten. You're talking about a guy who hadn't been drinking. You're talking about a guy who had depleted himself in order to make the weight. So if that's what we got from somebody who was depleted, imagine what we would get from somebody who is fully hydrated and has the same level of animosity towards you while fully hydrated. I think we get a shutout performance. That's what I think. As much as I like Conor, and I do like Conor, I like Team Ben. I love his dad, and the overall theme of this fight was, unity and family, and I love it. I loved every piece of it. I love that their fathers encouraged them. I love that they were always, particularly Nigel Benn, always encouraging his son and saying, no, he's better than me. He's better than me. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to be great. He's going to be a champion. I love that stuff. And then after the fight, you have Senior saying that about Junior. And he's like, no, yeah, of course I was going to be here. It's my son. I love my son. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be here. It's the biggest fight of his life. And this is a legacy fight. I'm definitely going to be here. I wasn't happy about the things that were said. I wasn't happy about the way things, had gone on in this promotion. But nonetheless, I will be here to support my child. And that was the overall lesson and overall tone of the fight. And I love that, and to make it even, take it a step further, to see these black men love their sons, openly love their sons, and be so caring and nurturing over their children was a beautiful thing to see. I was impressed. I can't wait for the rematch. I think it will be twice the size of this, not just in promotion, not just in the size of the crowd, but also in performance. I think both guys are going to look to make their proper adjustments, and I think Conor Benn has a lot of tells. So he needs to correct that. He has a lot of tells. I'm going to make a fight breakdown for the fight in September. But he has a lot of tells, and a lot of those things some of the things can get fixed. A tell is something, either you can fix it or you can't, and sometimes you get caught up in the mode, or, you're already in the groove of the fight, and that tell just comes back. It's like a bad habit. So maybe it can, maybe it can't. But I do know when I was looking at a lot of the tells, for example, I'll just mention one, Conor raising his hand before he throws the overhand. Yeah, that worked for like 3 rounds. And after that, Chris picked up on that. And when Conor would raise the hand, Chris would pull back. And it was over. You can't use that anymore. So it's just like, you got to be aware of what you're doing. And I think maybe we need to bring some people in for these fight games. Some other teams, throw some new blood in there. Because he did have some tells. I'll just leave it at that. I'll save it for my fight breakdown. But he did have some tells. Overall, I was impressed. Overall, I can't stop thinking about the fight. I've watched it like 4 times already. Kudos and congrats to both guys. Kudos and congrats to both dads. Kudos and congrats for putting on this spectacular promotion. Those are my thoughts. Drop your thoughts down below.